Hi everybody, Plant Liker episode 3!
Oh, here's another day where I appreciate plant life! Fuck you! I love plants!
How you doing since episode 2? You feeling pretty okay? Alright, that's what I like to hear. Yesterday I went out past Gates Pass out here in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona. Had a friend drive me out there outside of Tucson, and I was recording out there at sunset in the middle of the desert. I like to record my videos out in the middle of nowhere or in an empty house, somewhere where I'm going to be isolated, and so I can get kind of ramped the fuck up and sort of take risks with my improvisation, because I do not write scripts for almost any of my videos, and so it's really like I'm trying this thing, I'm trying that thing, I'm ranting about this, I'm doing these voices and goofy little, I'm trying different things, and a lot of it's gonna fail. Like 90-some% of the footage I delete, so it's I like to be somewhere where I don't have to worry about other people overhearing me and judging me at the time. I'm just in the creation. I'm just pouring it out, So that's why I got my friend to drive me out there in the middle of the desert. It's very appreciated, very helpful. And today I was working on editing that video, and I finished that. The video is called "I'd Rather Make Internet Content Than a Fucking Baby." It was actually something I said in my Snapchat story the other day, so shouts out, please add me on Snapchat, Steve Rogenbuck, and killing it on there, and I am today's the day for my bananas as well. I've been keeping a banana stockpile in my room, as many of you know, and I've hit the ripe point for a lot of them, and I have been eating lots of bananas now. I'm eating mostly bananas the past couple days. Actually almost sick of them, but I'm going to keep gonna finish these off, but I'm excited to get some to my carrots and oranges as well. And I got also popcorn. I've been eating quite a bit lately. I found a new way to eat my popcorn that I'm really excited about. I'll hopefully make a video recipe sort of thing about that. Anyway, gonna get into some questions and little topics here. This was on a Twitter DM, said, "Steve, enjoy the podcast. It's really stimulating. I have a question. One of my goals this year is to perform something I've written. I've always had a lot of shyness, and it would be a great achievement. The problem is I mostly create for the fun of creating and never share or perform. My question is, how would one go about making things accessible to others / easy to perform without compromising too much? Or just any tips for performing in general would be appreciated." So, tips about making things accessible to others, I would say honestly don't worry about that right up front when you're beginning. I think that the way is just follow your heart, do what you love. Think about if you went to a poetry reading or a performance, or whatever type of performance it is, stand-up comedy, whatever. If you went to one, what type of shit would you want to see, Or if you're making a video for the internet, what type of thing would you want to see on the internet? Really use that question to drive what you make. I think that's what I really love doing. Thinking about what would be my favorite thing for somebody to do, and really follow your heart. And then, once you get more experience, you make 20 videos, or you do 20, 50 performances, or, maybe 10 maybe you'll get a sense after 3 or 5 performances, but you'll get a sense after a while of what people like and don't like from what you like. So just do all the stuff that you like, and then, you'll get a sense of what people care about the most from that. And if you read the same poems at many different venues, for example, if you try it out at different open mics in different times and places, you'll find that, it will vary a little bit from place to place, but there will be some poems of yours maybe that will always be a hit, and some poems that will usually always flop and not get very good response. And so that's just something you'll learn over time. And then, once you have that information, you can use that information if you want to, and weed out the stuff that people don't really care about, or you can just ignore that information and keep keep doing exactly what you love. But I think learning what's accessible to other people just comes with experience, and I would say don't try to game it too much up front, because it just makes the creation process a lot more stressful. And like I said about making my own videos, it really just gotta be able to just pour out the creation, and then afterwards you can go through and refine. But in the initial creation, it's way easier if you can just like create freely. Now the other thing is performance tips in general. So I've got a few things. The first two are like physiological things if you're not in the right state to get up in front of people and perform. And that is, if you're like your heart's beating, you're too stressed out or like nervous, I would say focus on your breathing and breathe slowly. Almost like a little mini meditation before you go up. Just, breathe out very slowly and feel it and focus on it and listen to it. And then breathe in slowly and feel it and focus it and listen to it. And, do that a few times and you'll already be just like a little bit more calmer just from that, is my experience anyway. And then sometimes I feel, now this is something that a lot of other people are not even aware of when they go up to perform, but sometimes I feel another problem can be if you're not amped up enough, if you're too calm or too like whatever, or kind of sad, or kind of low energy or something. And that could even work for some types of performances probably. But, for me anyway, for the type of thing I'm doing, I'm trying to give people some good energy. I'm trying to transfer some awake, and I want to feel awake, at the moment. And so I would say one thing is jumping up and down. You can jump up and down. I'm doing it right now, and it gets you a little bit more energetic. And you can do jumping jacks is another practical way to do it. I was doing this one show in New York City one time, and I could tell that I just didn't have that very good energy when it was my turn to go up. And so what I did was I got up in front of the group, and what I started doing is I just started doing jumping jacks, and I started counting them, and I asked everybody to count along, and I did up to 100 jumping jacks at the beginning of my set. Now that may not be something that you want to do or something that you're not even able to do, but some type of movement like that or something can be helpful to just, your emotions is very tied to your emotions, your physical movements. And so sometimes running back and forth or jumping like that can really get you in a more amped up state to then go on stage and really be like, woo, in the right place for that. Now, the last thing I'll say is a general performance tip is something I talked about briefly in my video called Choose to Be Brave. Now, that video is sort of talking about the broader picture of like putting yourself out there in front of people anywhere that you could be criticized or appreciated. But it also applies specifically to performing in front of a live group. And that is, focus on the people that you're doing it for. Focus on the people that you might make laugh with your performance, or the people who might feel moved by it, or the people who you're there to impress, or whatever it is. I don't know if that's the right way of saying that, but for me, what I focus on is like my work, my mission with my work a lot of times is to really get people like amped up and appreciative and feeling like they can do it, like that's just sort of the energy that I always want to bring to people in everything I do, mostly everything I do. And so with the live performances, I'll look around the room at other people, and it really helps when there's people there who I know are like fans of me or something, because I know it matters to them. I know like, oh, this person like has been following me on the internet for a while and they really care about this, and I want to do a good job for them, and then if there's not anybody there like that, then maybe, you could think of maybe there's people there who would be really into it and would be a fan, but they just don't know yet. That's why one public speaking life hack that I've heard is you have to like almost like believe that somebody there is going to love it and care about it a lot and do it for that person, because there might be somebody there who would be. I don't know, maybe, but that might not work for some people because it might just make them feel extra nervous. But for me, it's like, oh, I want to perform for those people. And it makes me feel like I'm doing it for them, and that gives me a better energy than if I'm like, oh, I need to do it so that I do well It's like, no, it's about boosting other people, and that gets me in a better state. Anyway, whatever. There's one last public speaking life hack I will share with you, and that is a very genuine one, but it's also kind of funny. I've shared it at some of my live shows before, is that honestly, if you're in a place where the audience seems to not really be reacting well, they seem bored or whatever, just say, "Who here fucking loves pistachios?" And I've found that people do like them. People love them, and they will tell you. And it is a great thing. It's just a nice little boost. Now, you could probably do this with other stuff if you don't want to be directly ripping me off. But I have found that pistachios have a high response rate, whereas I've also tried it with legumes. You know, the category of food that beans and peas and lentils fall into, legumes. I'm like, who here fucking loves legumes? And you don't get as much response with that. But with pistachios, people do love them, and so that is a public speaking life hack, and I actually do use that. I've used it at a lot of different shows, so shouts out to that. Okay, and I don't know if I told you this in the intro, but it's fucking cold out here. I think it's in the 40s right now, the temperature out here in this shed. So this is pretty rare that I'm out here recording this for y'all. You know, the temperature in the desert drops a lot at night, you know. So I'm truly wintrous out here. And, you know, and who here fucking loves to know about horse types? Yeah. Who listening to this is like, I love to know that Palomino is a color of horse. And I love to also know that Thoroughbred is one of the fastest racing horses. But, Quarter Horse is the fastest horse at the quarter mile. Now, who here listening to this knew those and loved that you knew those? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But now, who listening to this didn't know them and now is glad that they know them now? Nice. Well, then I'm glad that I was able to help you. Now, I need to know more horse types. I know that I love the beauty of Appaloosa horses. And if you don't know what an Appaloosa horse looks like, just look that up. Just look that beauty up. All right. Yeah, this is horse information radio that you're listening to. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Gonna have a vegan question here. I'll try to keep at least one vegan question per episode as we going on here. This one was, has going vegan presented any health risks or major challenges? And the answer to that for me is no, not really. I've been vegan for over 8 years and I've been healthy with it, even though I think the first maybe 6 years I did not eat that healthy of a vegan diet. And I'm still making improvements, but now I think I'm at a pretty healthy diet. But, you know, I didn't eat many vegetables, and I ate a lot of pasta and oil and a lot of veggie burgers, and I was fine. I've been fine on the vegan diet health-wise, but that's not the case for everybody. People do run into problems. You do hear those stories. I'm talking to people about veganism, and they're like, "Oh, I would like to be vegan, but I tried it once and I got sick, or my doctor told me I had to go back for whatever reason." And so it does happen, right? And this is something I want to talk about a little bit more, because there's many different versions of what a vegan diet can be like. You know, just like I was saying, my old version of my vegan diet was a lot less healthy than I now currently eat. There's many different cases. You know, there's many ways to eat a diet with meat, and there's many ways to eat a diet without meat. You know, your diet could include 100% different foods and still be vegan. And so when people say, I tried vegan and it didn't work for me, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, I can understand that. If you got fucking sick from going vegan, I could understand the response of like, oh, well, I'm going back to eating meat. I can't be fucking sick all the time. That sucks. You know, I understand that. But also, like, logically speaking, how many versions of veganism did you try? Because there's like a million different ways to do it, you know? And if it's something that matters to you, then I encourage you to not give up if you do, you know, run into a problem right away, you know? If your doctor tells you that you should go back to eating meat, you know, see if you can get him to tell you what specific nutrients you're missing, you know? And then work on those specifically. You know, sometimes people will run into a problem with iron, especially if they're someone who menstruates. But you can get tons of iron from plant foods, and from what I've heard, it's a healthier source of iron because it's non-heme iron in plant foods, which means that your body absorbs what it needs, and there's not as much risk of getting overdose of iron, which can happen sometimes to people eating meat and stuff. There's vitamin B12 people will run into a problem with a lot, but, you know, you can take supplement in various different forms for B12. Vitamin D is sometimes something, but a lot of times non-vegans are deficient in vitamin D too, but, you know, if you just make sure you get lots of sunlight or start taking a vitamin D supplement or whatever, like, most of these things can be solved, and you may not necessarily need to give up veganism as a whole. There was this video I watched recently by Andrew Perlott, who is a raw vegan, and he YouTubes. He makes the YouTubes about his diet and health, and he knows a ton about nutrition, and he had this digestive disorder when he was growing up, and it caused him a lot of pain, and it was bad stuff. And then he switched to a vegan diet at some point, and it actually got worse for him immediately. His digestive issues got worse for him immediately because he was eating a lot of whole grains and legumes. It was a lot of fiber that was tough on his system. It was insoluble fiber, and so he found that was bad for him. But then he tried eating like all raw fruits and vegetables, and that worked really well for him, and it's now his digestive issues are all cleared up, and it's way better than it was when he was originally eating non-vegan. And so if he had given up right after his first try at a vegan diet with the whole grains and legumes and stuff, he would have never fixed that health problem of his. And so, you know, there's what I'm saying is that there's many different ways to do veganism. And so if you are somebody who does run into a problem, you know, on the one hand, I totally understand and respect if you decide to duck out or something, but on the other hand, I'm like, you may not need to, because there's many different ways to eat vegan, and there's many different ways to get all these different nutrients that your body needs. And another thing to consider is that, you know, yeah, we can get calcium from cow's milk, and we can get omega-3s from fish, but one thing that Dr. Michael Greger always talks about, that I appreciate, is that think about how those nutrients are packaged. You know, calcium, yes, is good. Our body needs calcium, but if you get your calcium through milk, then you're also getting a ton of saturated fat. You're getting a ton of cholesterol. You're getting whatever growth hormones and stuff are in the milk, depending how it's produced. You're getting animal proteins, which have been linked to stimulating growth of various cancers. There's a lot of bad stuff in milk. Milk is one of the least healthy foods based on what I know. And so if you can get your calcium from, say, a huge salad of dark leafy greens, then the calcium is going to be packaged along with tons of other vitamins and minerals and water and fiber and tons of phytochemicals from the greens. And it's just going to be like a way healthier way to get your calcium, you know? And so that's something to consider. And with fish, you know, with omega-3s, it's like, yes, you can get your omega-3s from fish. Omega-3s are very healthy, but it's like mercury contamination, animal proteins, a lot of the unhealthy stuff that other animal foods have, again. And so thinking about how they're packaged, you know, maybe it's better to get your omega-3s from flaxseed and walnuts, and maybe even a supplement that gets DHA omega-3s from algae. I got a little bottle of those. I take those some days when I remember to. So you can get the same DHA long chain omega-3s whoop, 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 for brain and heart health. For brain and heart health, without the frickin' mercury contamination in the fish. What's up? And without hurting fish. And without destroying the world's oceans, because that's a big problem as well. You know, there's a lot of very scary stuff when you learn about climate change and ocean dead zones and deforestation, and there's a lot of very apocalyptic shit that we are literally in a mass extinction right now based on like the numbers of species that have gone extinct in the recent time. Okay, well, that's just dark shit right there. Let's try to do our best that we can on that front. Whoop, whoop. Okay. How's everybody doing now? Who's down to paint a fucking house right now? If somebody burst into your room or came up to you and said, hey, do you want to paint a house? What would your initial reaction be? Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got a couple more questions I can speak to on this episode. Someone asked me this question. You used to discuss how Buddhism informed your life and spirituality. Is Buddhist thought still part of your worldview? So I talked about Buddhism a lot more publicly in 2011-ish, and I was most influenced by Shunryu Suzuki. He's like the Zen Buddhist speaker that really changed my life and really impacted my worldview. I would recommend his books to anybody. His most popular book is called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and it's just these short talks. And then he's got another one called Not Always So, Practicing the True Spirit of Zen. And then there's another one called Branching Streams Flow in the Darkness. But anyway, he has books of these talks that he gave, and his language is so amazing. He is not a native English speaker, and so I think he, uses English a little bit differently, and it's very poetic a lot of times, the stuff he says. Also, I guess Zen a lot of times just ends up being poetic because they're like trying to break your rational thought or whatever by like saying contradictory things and stuff. That's sort of, the Zen cliches of like the koans and stuff. But Shunryu Suzuki is particularly warm and simple in his tone, and I really appreciate that, because sometimes when I read spiritual texts, even spiritual texts, but especially like self-help texts or self-improvement, personal development texts or something, a lot of times it can actually make me feel more stressed, because it's very telling you what you should do or what's best to do, and it's like, we should think this way, we should do that way, and sometimes even meditation can be very stressful if you're thinking about it the wrong way, right? You sit down and you're like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Is my form right? Is my breathing right? Oh no, I'm thinking about this other thing I'm not supposed to be thinking about, whatever. That kind of stuff happens a lot with spirituality and with self-help stuff. If you've got various other sources, I feel cause me to have that reaction sometimes, but with Shunryu Suzuki, I don't have that reaction. It really helps me, usually, I feel, to get pretty calmed out and pretty and I don't know, there's something about his worldview that I really like. I think the way he embodies the non-duality, there's this one part of one of his talks that really embodies it well for me. He gets to the end of the talk, and he's been talking about like the single-minded way or something, and it's a pretty nice, meaningful talk. I really like it, but then he gets to the end and he's like, there's no need to remember what I say. There's no need to understand what I say. You understand. You have full understanding within yourself. There is no problem. And when he says that, I feel like that is so good. That just makes me feel really fucking good. It's like, okay, I sat here, I listened to this, and I let it soak into me. And you can go back and think about it more and write notes about it to let it really soak in or something. But like ultimately, don't be caught up about, oh no, do I understand? Do I remember? Oh no, am I doing it right? And it's like, no, you understand. You understand that you have everything you need inside yourself. There's no problem, That, to me, was very cool. Anyway, Shunryu Suzuki, I just love his stuff. What can I say? Look at his stuff. Now, the question was asking, is Buddhist thought still part of your worldview? I'd say it definitely always will be, from that deep experience. And there were other Buddhist thinkers who also influenced me, but none to the degree that I really feel a need to list them. I think Shunryu Suzuki had a disproportionate impact on me as the main source. And then also just, practicing meditation was very helpful to me, and I still do it sometimes, although not very consistently lately, but maybe I'll get back into it consistently. But I do use it when I need to calm down. Like when I recognize that I'm just like, the two things I do is I make a list, or I make a little journal to check in with myself and get thoughts out, and then I also meditate as a way to sort of reset and calm down. Anyway, I feel like Buddhist thought will always be there for me, but I don't really talk about it that much or specifically seek out tons of like specifically Buddhist thinkers, because I realize like a lot of what I love about it is just like it could be present in Buddhist speakers, but it can also be present everywhere else. And so I sometimes will find people on Twitter who like contain a similar energy and a similar worldview that I will follow and really care about, and I'll find other speakers and other writers, poets, and I find the spirituality that I was connecting to in Buddhism, I find it other places as well. And so I've just sort of stopped using as much of a label for what my spirituality is or what my worldview is or philosophy or whatever. I'm just, I find people who seem good and who seem like this makes sense to me. This feels like a good way to see the world, and if I see the world this way, it's going to help me be a better person, be a better version of myself, enjoy life more, whatever it is, So boom, boom, boom. That's what I think about that right now. Woo, woo. Okay. Yeah. Somebody asked me, how do you travel when you're on tour? And this varies. Usually I'm taking public transportation. I'm taking buses. Sometimes I'll take trains. Sometimes I'll take planes occasionally. Usually I try to do it in a very cheap way. Now, I do not own a car. I was considering recently getting a car because 2015 I was touring a lot. And I was like, would I enjoy having the car more? Sometimes it's really annoying to take the shitty Greyhound buses when there's only one bus per day going between the routes that you want to go to. And then I just have to get up at 4 a.m. to catch the correct bus to get to the place that I'm going, even though then I'll get to the next place at 6 a.m. and I'll have nothing to do there the whole day. If I was driving my own car, I could have drove in the middle of the afternoon and it would have maybe been more pleasant. Could have got better sleep, etc. But, I don't know. It's kind of interesting and gas is cheaper than bus tickets usually, but there's a ton of trade-offs. If I was going in a car, I could have somebody else come with me, and it wouldn't cost me a whole nother bus ticket, So it would be easier to travel with other people with me on tour if I was going in a car. I could take tons more merch if I was in a car, so I could have T-shirts with me. I could have like all the books I've done. Rather than traveling on public transportation, I've always got to have my duffel bag of books, and it's really heavy, and so I only take like 2 of my recent books, and then I sometimes sell out, and it's complicated to get it figured out. I could take a lot of nice canned food. If I was in the car, I would have a ton of bananas in there, and I would have a ton of canned garbanzo beans, and I would just be like throwing down the best food if I was in my own car. But you know what? Having a car is, it's insurance. I think maybe the worst thing is driving time, honestly, and also finding places to park and stuff. It seems stressful. I really don't like driving that much. I find it stressful. I feel like during the end of my time driving, I just always got so paranoid that I was going to get in accidents, and especially hit animals that like jump out or something. I don't want to hit any animals, and so I really love taking the Greyhound buses and Megabus. I like Megabus more, but they don't have all the routes. And when I take those buses, it's like I can get on, and then it's somebody else's responsibility to get us there. The driver has to get us there. And if there's traffic, it's the driver who has to like be looking at the road and working on that. Whereas I can like whip out a computer or a book and read, or I can be on my phone. I can be doing different social media stuff. I can be getting legit work done sometimes, or I can be sleeping or whatever it is. And so I found that actually I do like the public transportation touring, although it's a lot to book in advance, all these different trips. I don't think many people tour like I tour. It's a very rare style of travel, I think. But I don't know. I did do one poetry tour with Boost House in my roommate Rachel's car last 2014 it was actually. We went on a little group tour, and that was fun too, having the group of people. But it's also a totally different financial model if you're traveling with other poets, because then if the way you're making money is by collecting donations or getting money from a door admission, then it's got to be split between the different poets, right? I mean, that would be the logical way to do it anyway, to split it with the other poets. So then you're making less, even though you might have to pay less for gas too. It's just a whole different economic model. So, you know, there's lots of different tour tips I might have. And actually, I was gonna be working on a tour advice little booklet with somebody, but I haven't heard about it in a long time, so maybe it's not happening anymore. But maybe if more people are interested in that, you know, let me know. I could send you personal advice, or maybe I could make something about that, whether it's a podcast episode or a video or whatever. Okay, well, thanks for listening. Please let me know, feedback on this, what you'd like to hear more of or less of, or whatever the fuck. I don't give a shit, man. And shouts out to ponies. I don't really know what they are. I think they're small horses, or they're something different. I know that mules are different. Donkeys are different. Sometimes I just don't remember which is which. And, you know, shouts out to ponies, whatever the fuck they are. Eat more whole plant foods if you can, and hail Satan if you want to. No pressure.